Have you ever woke up one day and looked at yourself in the mirror and thought, wow, I look really good today, and it just boosts your confidence? Or maybe you're walking down the hallway and you see yourself in a reflection and you just think, wow, I look really good, and you just can't really stop looking at the reflection. I don't know if I'm a narcissist, but I feel like everyone has experienced this. Then the forbidden happens. You're goofing off with your friends, but then one of them take an unannounced picture where you're not really paying attention. You see the picture and all you can think is, I am one of the ugliest people in the world. How did I ever think that I was attractive? This actually is not in your head because you look completely different in pictures than you do in real life and in your reflection. In this video, I'm going to explain exactly why you think you look worse in photos than you do in mirrors. That way you fully grasp the concept. Then I'm going to explain exactly how you can look good in pictures the same way you do in the mirror. It's a very simple thing, and learning this can dramatically change your confidence throughout your day-to-day life. Starting with section 1, we have psychological factors. You are used to seeing yourself in reflections every single day, whether it's a car window, a mirror, or even your phone. The thing is, we get used to seeing that reflection so often that anything different can actually trick our brains. Even if you look at yourself in the reflection right now, you're so used to seeing it that you probably don't feel anything weird about it. Now, this part is going to hurt a lot of feelings, but what people don't understand is you are inverted. Yes, your facial features go the opposite direction than you actually see every single day. The mirror or reflection is what you're used to seeing, but in real life, people see you completely flipped. The reason this hurts your ego so bad is because of what I mentioned about the fact that you're so used to seeing yourself. You're so used to seeing your reflection that when you see anything different, you get weirded out. What this basically means is you are literally reversed. You need to unreverse your brain. Before I get into section 2 to tell you how to fix these things, let me tell you something called the mirror exposure effect. This is when you see something so many times that your brain becomes completely familiar with it, and seeing it any other way is extremely weird to you. A good example is if you walk in a room every day and you see the walls are white. Your brain becomes so familiar with this that it kind of like sees it without even seeing it. Let's say you walk in the room and you close your eyes and you don't even see anything. You just know that you're in the room. When you open them, you're going to expect them to be white. Let's say the walls are then yellow when you open your eyes. You are literally going to freak out. Your brain is not going to know what to do. Same applies to your face. These are the technical differences between mirrors and cameras. First, let's talk about lens distortion. The closer that you have a camera to your face, the more narrow your face looks. The farther back you get, the more wide your face looks. The thing is, our human eyes are basically like camera lenses, and we're used to seeing people from a certain distance. So what happens when someone takes your picture, based on the lens and the distance they are away from you, you could look dramatically different. If you've ever seen those 0.5 photos where someone takes a photo really close to your face and your face literally looks like a stick because it's so narrow, our eyes actually do the same thing, but cameras do it on another level, which is the same reason why this camera that I'm recording on is going to look completely different than my phone's camera as well. Literally every camera is going to show you a different depiction of your face when our eyes are basically a consistent thing. Second point of step 2 is lighting conditions. Lighting can dramatically change the way your face looks, whether you believe it or not. This includes everything from shadows to the time of day it is to where you are in the world. For example, if you're someone who carries your hair on your face kind of like I do, I'm going to have a huge harsh shadow on my face whenever someone takes a picture of me outside. I don't know if you guys ever heard of school air or whatever. It's a phrase that got popular on TikTok. People basically think that they look worse at school than they do back at home, and the reason for this is because of the lighting. Most schools have harsh lighting that reflects straight above your head. This casts this harsh shadow on your face where your nose is going to cast a shadow, your hair, your eyebrows. You're literally going to look distorted and like a different person than you're used to seeing. The same thing applies when you go outside during different times of the day. If it's sunset, sunrise, the middle of the day, literally every single scenario is going to have different lighting, making your face look different. The issue is that when you're seeing yourself in a mirror, most of the time the lighting is in the same position, either right above the mirror or right above your head. It's not necessarily about where the lighting is, it's the fact that it's consistent every time because a lot of mirrors aren't going to move. If you were to carry a mirror outside, you actually are going to look a lot different and more similar to the way you look in photos. Then point 3 of section 2 is actually dynamic versus stable shots. You got to think about it. Our eyes are always moving and people are always moving. You're not sitting completely still like you are in photos. If you have a small frame where you're blinking and your eyes look rolled back in your head, that's not going to be an accurate depiction of what you look like, simply because we move. So when someone comes up with a really high quality camera to your face, it just is not a realistic thing to look at. Because when you really think about it, if someone takes a high quality picture of your face, people just see things blurry because of how much we move. For example, if you wave your hand in front of your face like this right now, it's going to look kind of blurry. The reason being is because if our eyes didn't blur things out, it would literally look like unprocessable. You would not know what's moving and what's still, and your brain would just completely tweak out. Taking a picture is literally taking that blur that we see with everything that moves and completely negating it. Now that you know the difference between static versus dynamic, let's move into section 3, which is how to look your best in every photo taken. First thing I need to go over in section 3 is the parts of your face that you're not used to. Number 1, your face is asymmetrical. Everybody's face is actually asymmetrical, which basically means one side is different from the other. Now, the reason this is such an issue, if you're listening closely, is the fact that everything is inverted or flipped. So if you really like this side of your face, you're probably going to look at it whenever you're looking in the mirror. You're going to focus on your good features because we actually see ourselves more attractive than we really are. If I'm always looking at this part of my face, then someone takes a picture, it flips it. So now, if I'm looking here, I'm going to see the right side of my face rather than the left. Like I said, our brain doesn't like that. And also, you're probably going to be looking at your bad side rather than your good side, which is just not a good thing for your brain. In order to fix asymmetries in your face, what I recommend doing is start sleeping on your back and also fixing your hairstyle. So instead of having a hairstyle that goes more one side than the other, try having it all go towards the center. So that way, when the camera is flipped, you kind of look the same, at least in that area. This will help with asymmetries. And honestly, you don't even have to get a haircut. This is my brand you can find at shopcleancut.com. And for example, this is our grooming clay. You can put this clay in your hair to mold your hair a certain way so that way it sticks and it's not going to be asymmetrical. Another thing you can use is the salt spray so that way it gives your hair texture, or you can even use this texture powder if you have straight hair. The reason that using hair products is so beneficial is because you control the way your hair looks and it's not moving around all the time. Especially if your head or face is asymmetrical, you can at least make your hair look the same. That way it's a consistent thing whether you're looking in the mirror or getting your picture taken. Like I said, our brains like familiarity, so the more consistent that you can keep things like your hair, for example, the more your brain's going to like it and the more confidence you're actually going to have. I'll put the link in the description if you want to get any of these hair products as well, or you could just go get a haircut too. Aside from this, you can do things like lining up your eyebrows, starting a skincare routine, and also avoiding chewing your food more on one side than the other, so that way it fixes your jaw's asymmetries. If you want to go an extreme route, you could even get something like braces to fix your teeth, which will then fix your jaw, fixing your asymmetries. But to be honest, you really don't need to do all of that. The second tip in section 3 is knowing camera settings. So for example, whether you're on your phone or an actual high quality camera, there's something called exposure, which determines how light or dark you look in photos. What I recommend doing is using higher exposure at most times. What low exposure does is it really highlights the shadows, which I mentioned was an issue in the past. Especially if you have an asymmetrical face, you might have shadows that are bigger on one side and you really don't want that being highlighted. Or if you don't use hairstyling products and your hair is all over the place and it's casting shadows everywhere, by turning up the exposure, what that's going to do is just make you look better by hiding these shadows better. Also, for camera settings, keep in mind the distance and the lens that you're using. Like I said, with those 0.5 pictures, you're going to look really narrow if you're taking those close up. And if you're on the 1x zoom setting on your phone, you might want to take those at a medium distance so that way your face doesn't look too wide. Something else you could literally try is there's a face zoom filter on TikTok, and the farther you back up with that filter on, the more wide your face looks. What this means is you can really play off the features that you like and dislike about your face. So if you don't like how wide your face is, take pictures closer up. And if you think your face is too narrow, just back up and do a zoomed in lens. And if you're taking group photos, your friends are going to be wondering why you look better at certain distances than them. If they didn't see this video, you're just going to be mogging them. So definitely try that. From that, you want to make sure you have even lighting. Like I said, you don't want to have any harsh shadows. So I recommend taking most of your photos during the midday rather than sunset or sunrise, unless you're trying to get a more cinematic feel. That part is truly all just personal preference though. In my personal opinion, I really like having one really bright light in front of my face. I feel like it makes me look the best, but it really is customizable because different lighting, like I said, is going to look better or worse on different people. So just play off your advantages. After giving you this information, you now know how to look good in photos. If that's not enough for you, I recommend watching this video right here where I teach you how to get a better looking face in only 24 hours.